So today we're joined by Laura Wellington from Inspira, and today we'll be discussing about the new Connect to Work initiatives that they're running. So for people who haven't heard about Connect to Work yet, can you please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what the programme is all about?
So I am the head of employability at Inspira, and we are a Cumbrian-based charity working in careers and personal development and helping people get back into work. And Connect to Work is a new voluntary government-funded programme that we're delivering on behalf of the Cumbrian Combined Authority and Enterprise in Cumbria. And that is designed to help people who face significant barriers to get back into work, whether those barriers are due to disability, to health conditions, caring responsibilities, other things that might be going on in their lives. And what makes it different to a lot of other programmes is that it's really person-centred and place-based. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not about applying for vacancies that are out there. It's about finding the right jobs for those people. And the aim isn't just to help people find work, but it's to help them sustain that work and stay in it. And that obviously leads to a better quality of life for people.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, that sounds really good. It's a really tailored approach, because I guess it can be quite challenging for a lot of people to get into work, and like you say, to actually stick at it and for it to be a long-term sort of solution. So yeah, it's good to hear that that's in place. So moving on to the next question then. So why would you say that this is such an important programme for Cumbria right now?
So I think Cumbria's got a really unique mix of challenges. There's obviously the dispersed rural population, there are some transport barriers, and at the same time there are skills shortages and employers who can't find the right people. So in Cumbria there are around 57,000 people who are classed as inactive, so they're not in the labour market for whatever reason. They're not kind of actively seeking work. But of those 57,000, 1 in 5 of them say that they would like to be in work. And obviously that is a real impact. You know, that's 13,000 people sitting there who would like to be working, but because of their barriers, they can't be. So Connect to Work is about joining those two things up and getting those people into good quality work and helping them move forward, but also helping local employers to access a wider, more diverse talent pool. Who doesn't want to employ people who want to work? You know, people who are saying, yeah, I really want to be back in the workforce, and supporting people to kind of work in their communities.
Okay, brilliant. And it's just made me think there, so there are people that want to be in work, but for whatever reason are struggling to get past those barriers. And is that something that employers can do on their side to make it more accessible for people, or just to sort of help in some way that's just what people maybe just wouldn't think is the norm?
Yeah, so I think that's bridging that gap is part of what Connect to Work's about. A lot of it is about supporting employers to understand the things that they can do. There's a certain amount of Connect to Work that's about helping people who are already in work as well and supporting them to stay in roles that they're perhaps struggling with. Employers who've got someone who works for them and they think, you know, we're struggling here and we would like some support. So what Connect to Work can do is go in and help those employers look at things like what sorts of reasonable adjustments might help this person. And sometimes those adjustments can be really, really small. They might be about things like extra check-ins with a manager or a buddy, or you know, additional support with particular things, and that can really help people either get into those jobs in the first place or to sustain the jobs that they're in.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. I guess, yeah, because it's just sometimes it is the little things that seem little to some people but are quite big to others, aren't they?
Yeah,
so,
I think for some people even just that first step of finding work and applying for work can be quite overwhelming. You know, if they've not done it for a while or they've never done it, they're not used to those processes. It can be quite daunting. So it can help some of those people get over those hurdles, and it helps employers connect with those people that otherwise they may never have discovered, but who have real talent.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. So moving on to the next question there, I've got here, what are some of the biggest barriers people face when trying to get into work or return to work? I suppose we've sort of touched on that a little bit, but are there any other sort of specific examples you can think of?
Yeah, I think barriers quite often are multiple and tend to be interconnected. So perhaps if someone's got a health condition, that might have knocked their confidence because they've been out of work for a while, or because they can't do something that they used to be able to do, and perhaps they don't know what direction to go in now. We've already talked about things like limited access to transport or caring responsibilities, meaning that people find it difficult to find work that's accessible to them, that's in their area, or that is the right hours for them to be able to do the other things they need to do. And again, we've talked about how some people find even just those processes of applying for work and looking for work difficult as well.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Now, what would you say some of the biggest misconceptions employers or the public have around this?
I think a common misconception is that people who need additional support aren't capable of doing the job. So perhaps, it puts employers off, or it puts members of the public off, when in reality, I think, as I said, there are sometimes those reasonable adjustments can be really small things that will help someone thrive in a workplace, that will enable them to do the job. Or it might just be about offering a little bit of flexibility, thinking differently about the kind of hours someone might work or the shift pattern someone might work. Another myth is that, I suppose this isn't a myth because this is something that historically has happened, that once people start work, the support stops. So quite often people might be working with someone who'll help them to find the vacancy, help them to apply for the vacancy, and once they get into the job, well, that's it, they're on their own then, that's outcome achieved. And Connect to Work isn't like that. Connect to Work is about supporting people once they're in the role. So we keep in touch with people even after they've started their job, and with their consent, we'll also help to work with their employer to help them stay there and talk about those adjustments and really do what we can to keep them in that job.
Yeah, that's really good because yeah, I could see why that would put a lot of people off if they thought that, well, once I've got a job, there's no more support. Do you know what I mean? And I hope that sort of gives people a bit more confidence in thinking that, like, yes, just to make that sort of first move into getting something, because they know that they are going to get that ongoing support, and that once they've got a job, that help will be there to get them settled in, to get them up and running, and to feel confident doing their own role, and that, any sort of, and the relationship with the employer as well, that there's like that third party that's on their side. Well, it's on both people's sides. It's in your best interest to make sure everyone's working well, isn't it?
Yeah, for people who've been out of work for a while, sometimes those first couple of weeks or months can be like the most difficult part, because it's a change to your whole way of life, isn't it? And every day is throwing up new challenges. How do I interact with this person? I've got to go to this new place that I've never been to before. If you think about kind of your first time doing something new, that can be really daunting, and you kind of having to deal with a lot of stuff there. So it's really good to have someone who's on your side.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Moving on, a lot of businesses are struggling to recruit at the moment. So how can Connect to Work help employers?
So I think the key thing for employers to understand is that Connect to Work is working with employers. So it's connecting employers to people who are really motivated to work. People can only come on Connect to Work if they want to work, and it's a voluntary programme, so they kind of have to say, yes, I want to come on this and I am ready to find a job. That's what I want to do. And the matching is really personalised. So people might come in and say to us, I want to work in that shop there, or I really want to work in this kind of industry. So if you're being connected to Connect to Work participants, they're really motivated to work, and potentially to work for you, for your organisation. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want people who are motivated and committed to coming in? And then as we've just talked about, that employment specialist is there alongside. So they're there to support both the employer and the individual. And I think that reduces risk on both sides. There's someone there to talk things through and to get across those first hurdles. And we also obviously offer support to people who are already in work. So if an employer's got someone that they kind of think, we've got this person who's really great at all of these things, but they're struggling in these other areas, that's something that Connect to Work can support with as well. So increasing retention as well as recruitment.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And I think it's a really important point that you raised there, that these people are voluntarily coming to you, so they are motivated, because from a business's perspective, there's probably nothing worse when they hire someone into the role and then all of a sudden the motivation just drops and they're just, not performing even to a standard level. But if these people are ready, they're willing and they want to work for you, then that's just makes everything sort of align quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So is there any other sort of specific support available to businesses that get involved?
I think it would be really tailored both to the business and to the person that they were working with. So it might be that we'd be looking at some occupational health support. We might be looking at some specific coaching around certain needs that people have. There's kind of a whole directory of support that people can access, but it's really about that individual and what do they need to help them retain and stay in that job once they get there. And it can go on for up to 12 months. So that's a significant amount of time to get someone really up and running in a role, I think.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And all of those things that you mentioned, is there any sort of costs involved to the business, or is it all funded through the programme that you're running?
It will be funded through the programme while that person's on programme with us,
Okay, so I think that's a great opportunity for businesses as well, just to sort of broaden their horizons and what they can offer back to employees as well. So I think that's really good. So looking at the next question, what would you say to employers who might feel unsure about hiring someone who needs additional support?
I think the first thing is that they won't be alone in this. There's a lot of employers out there who perhaps feel the same way. But we have got some employers who've taken participants on who absolutely cannot say enough about the participants and the support that they've had. Just the employment specialists have been there to support them all the way through. And that they've got access to these motivated, talented people that previously, they might never have met, that might never have come to work for them. And I think what they're telling us is that these people are some of their most loyal, most committed and motivated staff once they've started. And some of those adjustments can be really, really small adjustments. We're not talking necessarily about huge pieces of equipment or modifications to buildings. Quite often it's about the way we approach things or the level of support that someone's getting. And I think once current employees see how motivated and committed some of these people are, it's it's a real boost to workplace culture. And it can be really significant.
So do you have any sort of examples or stories that show the kind of impact that this programme can have?
We've got a really fantastic young lady who came to us earlier this year, who had an ambition to be a bus driver. That was her goal in life. She had some learning difficulties and had found since leaving college that she was struggling to get back into the workplace. So she put an application into Stagecoach and secured herself an interview, got some support with that interview process, and then needed a little bit more help with talking to them about reasonable adjustments, things that will make it easier for her to integrate into the workplace. So her employment specialist got in touch with Stagecoach, had a conversation with them, and they have put in some additional support for her, which looks like having a buddy, having a particular person to go to if she's got concerns or she doesn't understand something, having a really clear rota, and having additional check-ins with her manager. And that young lady has recently passed her bus driving test.
That's
she
fantastic.
was the top of her class of the 7 people on her training bus, and the employer can't speak highly enough of her. And this most recent weekend, I think she's just gone away on a weekend away with her partner that she paid for with money from her job, that has really been kind of, a real life changer for her.
Well, that is absolutely amazing, and it's just, well, it just goes to show, isn't it, that what people can really do with just that extra little nudge, a little bit of support, and I bet she feels absolutely over the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely fantastic. That is.
There is a video, we've got a video of that with the young lady and with Lee from Stagecoach talking, so we can send you the link to the video as well.
Yeah, send it over. No, that would be great to see. Yeah, and I mean, I guess that really sort of leads us into our next question, which is what difference can meaningful employment make to someone's confidence and well-being?
Yeah, it's life-changing. It gives them confidence. For a lot of people, it kind of restores routine and purpose in life. And it can improve kind of mental health and financial independence. So I would think of Connect to Work as being like a work-first model. So instead of saying you've come to us with all these barriers and we've got to fix all of these barriers before we put you into the workplace, the way Connect to Work looks at it is actually being in the workplace can help you with some of those barriers. So let's get you into the workplace and then let's start working on, because once you've got a little bit of money in your pocket, that can improve so many things, that it can have an impact on your housing, it can have an impact on your relationships. So it kind of has a real ripple effect on people's lives if they're in meaningful employment.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And I guess, I like your sort of the way of looking at it, really, just get people in first, because that's the hardest thing perhaps sort of mentally, isn't it, for people to make that first jump into just going into it. And then you kind of see, all right, well, how can we now make this better? How can we make it more comfortable? And before you know it, people will be, sort of, they'll be going, they'll be set up. Yeah. So, okay, brilliant. Now, coming to the last sort of couple of questions here. So, what would success look like for the programme over the next few years?
So for us, success is about getting more people in Cumbria into sustained and meaningful employment, and having fewer employers who are struggling to recruit, and an overall more inclusive workforce in Cumbria. I think that is the aim. We're looking to work with 3,000 people between now and the end of the programme, and we'd be looking to see over half of those going into, into meaningful, real jobs. So I think that's the other thing about Connect to Work, is that our key aim is about real jobs that are paid at the going rate. It's not about placements or volunteering or kind of segregated jobs that have been created just for the programme. It is about real, actual vacancies at the market rate. Yeah,
okay, brilliant. Well, I think that's an absolutely fantastic target, and quite the noble pursuit, to be honest. So, I think you're doing some fantastic work there. So if there's a business listening today and wants to get involved, what should they do?
So the first step is to get in touch and have a conversation with us. Either there's an inquiry form on our website, or they can give us a call and speak to someone. And whether they've got business vacancies in the business now, or they are just looking to become more inclusive in general, then we can offer them kind of a partnership approach that is going to work for them and for their workforce.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. And for anyone listening, you heard it here. Go to the Inspira website, check out the links in the description of this podcast, and get involved. Thanks for listening.